All right, I'm going to consider this the beginning of the interview now. After the technical difficulties, I would just like to say, Tarn, how have things been? It's been 343 days since we last spoke.
No, it's less than a year. That's like a regular release cycle, in the old days. Short one.
A short
Doing
release
great.
cycle, if that.
Yeah. It's not 26 months or anything. Everything's fun.
Well,
Yeah.
the release cycle seemed shorter than that even because there was updates kind of throughout. So let's scroll back to kind of the beginning of Adventure Mode's release cycle, I guess, because I just kind of want to ask, like, what was that process like going through and iterating with and slowly plugging old features back into a game that very much needs a lot of features from the get-go, but it was something that kind of had to be built back up to what it once was.
Yeah, it was much the same as Fortress Mode at kind of the basic level, except that we had a lot of graphics already sitting there, so it was kind of less graphics oriented and just get right back to, here's a menu, do the menu, plop this in, plop this down, where are the buttons going to go, yeah, just got everything kind of back up and running, aside from the cabins. Yeah, not too different, really, from what I've been doing since 2020. There was I mean, we did a few little feature changes, kind of like with Fort Mode, though. I mean, it's kind of analogous. We put in some weird little things in Fort Mode that you encounter in the kind of in the adamantine type area now, and also throwing in that little end game. And here we've done a little bit with our little mythical lords. They're not supposed to be like a fully realized feature, but just sort of a something to hang the tutorial on that's the same every time. That's kind of the trouble we had was like you can't count on a given thing being in the universe unless you really cordon it off. So we have these little dungeons now that you can go to that do feel kind of just tacked on, because they literally are tacked on. But I mean, it's something, and we got to throw in the healing fluids, clonable healing fluids, in the meantime. So that's nice anyway.
So I do kind of have a kind of a couple batches of questions kind of written up this time. Some of them are from me and some of them are from the community. Of course, I did what I normally do, where I kind of poll everybody and ask for a selection of questions. So kind of the first thing I really have here in regards to adventure mode is like just kind of all of the new stuff, because like I know you just mentioned the clonable healing liquids, which is something I've been doing a lot, but let's talk a little bit about the demigods. So like this is a feature that is now in the game that people can now go out and mess about with. You can speak with your god to a degree, or be told what to do by your god to a degree. I'm kind of curious, like what's your what was this feature? What was its original goal, and where is it at right now? And how would you like to expand upon it?
Yeah, so that was the idea originally, before we got into the actual process of doing things, was to have a sort of tutorial slash easier slash guided mode for people that are more used to regular RPGs, to just, here's a thing, go do it. It ostensibly advances some kind of a world state, and you'll also gain, some kind of power in the process, more like a traditional game, just so you can kind of get your footing before you and sort of touch the other systems of the game tangentially, and kind of get used to the fact that you can do all of this other strange stuff, and see your old fortresses and dance and whatever, while you're doing more traditional stuff. And then in practice, we just didn't get as far with it as we wanted to by the time we wanted to kind of be done with adventure mode and have more flexibility. Because we did do patches, some Fort Mode patches, while it was going on. Got a few of them up, but not nearly at the pace we would have liked. And so we're really just going to be able to share our focus more. And so what we have instead is chosen mode, which isn't really, you're not really a demigod in any demonstrable way, except for the fact that you have a pop-up on the screen of your god talking to you, and you can't even talk back. That was a big technical problem as well, trying to get the because you can talk one direction to your god, and your god can talk one direction to you, but having that be a conversation that is where there's a state living where they both understand what's going on is very tricky to do without having a creature like a unit type structure, like an in-game creature. And potentially could have fixed that by having a avatar pop down or something like that. That introduces its own troubles, of course. So really, we're kind of left with a sort of half and half system that, yeah, is not all that satisfying. Do have temple quests in. Anybody can play those without being chosen. So that's something. That's kind of a step in a direction anyway. But we had really planned out like five different scenarios involving this sort of chosen structure, and kind of never really landed on one of them. So that's kind of in the wings now for stuff when we're actually incorporating the myth generation into the Lewis scripts, and which are upcoming. Then maybe we can start to realize these things more properly. Although certainly Fortress mode is the focus now, and we are sticking with the dev pages as they currently stand.
Yeah, so like as you said, you're now refocusing on Fortress mode, which is probably going to actually lead into the next thing, which is more of an adventure mode topic because it is in there. Like, um, personally for me, I think that the Chosen stuff and the quest lines for the Chosen just seem like very much a kind of like a prototype feature, if anything. Currently, like everything is very is pretty. I think you actually said this in the notes at one point. It's very one note. But I mean, that's already been expanded upon a little bit with the different creature variety in the dungeons themselves. So I guess my question is like, what is the long term goal for the mythic dungeons and the mythic quests?
Yeah, I mean the long-term goal is kind of to have those kind of break apart into, and it's kind of hinted at with the cultist thing, I guess, but have that break apart into the whole sort of secondary magical society slash economy that lives alongside the rest of the game, and then kind of links into the regular old cities and towns through things like religion and so forth, that kind of straddle the divide, and that's where we want that to go. We had a lot of development notes, the 2020 development notes about being an agent of a wizard, for instance, or being able to kind of help build these sort of wizard tower type things. And also lots of stuff about sinister cults and night creatures and mega beasts bothering cities, and also being able to change the world in ways great and small, in terms of like the world map, or how a society is structured. And all of that is kind of, that's one angle now that we have these little places. That's something that can kind of be broken into that. That was one angle. We've put on the dev page now another angle with the sieges, of just kind of getting at the same thing. So we have this idea of the kidnapped thing, children kind of coming into fruition finally, as sort of uh, uh, demonic apprentices, and that will be linked in with what's going on in the kind of mythic environments, to the point, hopefully, by the time we're a bit further along here, where it won't feel like some kind of cheap plastic crap that was just kind of stapled onto the game, which is literally what it is right now. And yeah, I'm aware that it feels that way. It's just kind of the I think a lot of this is just me getting used to the new release flow, me getting used to version control, me getting used to what life is like now, and also, yeah, just with the kind of incredible life changes that I've gone through. There's just been a lot kind of pointed my way the last year, basically. So I think that's going to start coming together. But that's the general idea, is that where this is just kind of a toehold on myth stuff, a toehold on maps by getting what was once buried in like one vault or something in a world. The same code. I know the dungeons still suck, but the that code is now something that's accessible and kind of front facing for anybody that starts adventure mode is going to run into a mythic dungeon now if they go the easy route with the chosen mode stuff. And so I'm going to have to do better dungeons, and that's something that we're also going to link into the underground changes for fort mode, which is something that's, I think, right after sieges on the dev pages, something like that.
Trying to think now, like when was the last time we actually got new content for? I think it was the dice. Probably was the
Yeah,
last new
probably.
thing added to adventure mode. So it has been a very long time. So even getting anything kind of plugged in, even if it's something that'll be returned to in the near future, or later down the line, or it is kind of cool and exciting to see that happening in real time. Just because it's been so long. At this point, I feel like the big wait has happened now, um, and we're just kind
Yeah, it
of
was different.
chugging along now.
Yeah, it was different than what we expected. Like we expected the big weight to come out and like poof, here we have magic and things like that. Now it's like poof, we have graphics.
Isn't that sort of the same thing?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's indistinguishable. Yeah,
Yes,
sufficiently advanced graphics are indistinguishable from the magic release. Um,
pixels are indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, it's out of control what's been going on here. But and I should say, like, they just because I don't want, yeah, people to think I've forgotten between the map and the siege stuff was also, of course, the adventure mode site building, the missing button, which is not something I want to do in isolation. So there should be some new adventure mode stuff at that point as well.
So there's actually, since you brought it up, there's been a lot of speculation around building, um, from myself and also just random people out in the community. Is the plan to just re-implement the feature as it was, or is the plan to expand upon it?
Well, that's the interesting thing, is that it feels like if I just do it the way it was now, it's kind of like how you have the napping and the helves, and now you can chop down a tree, right? It's like it's just kind of this very slow, like Paleolithic um build up that, like, we had aspirations to really add a lot of little tools and really build up every dwarf mode profession tool wise, and have that be just like this kind of thing that we were always working on over the years. But I don't think that really fits the model anymore. So I think probably what will end up happening is that we'll get everything, aside from whatever is really annoying, and I can't say what that's going to be yet, but just kind of get fort mode crafting up using workshops, etc., and then and kind of get that up in some form over there, get the jobs working, so you can kind of so the skills that you pick aren't just about like retiring your adventurer in a fortress and having a skilled whatever. Like if you needed a fish dissector, you could make one or whatever. But now you'd just be able to do like meaningful things in adventure mode along those lines, which seems straightforward enough because all the code is just sort of sitting there. There's the issue of like the time differential, like the 144 times difference in the time that things take and so forth, that'll have to be dealt with. That's kind of where I'm leaning. And also we were leaning on there are just a lot of candidates out there, so I don't have a final decision here about some kind of cross mode stuff, additional cross mode stuff, whether that's founding a fortress with an adventurer party, or taking your abandoned dwarves and leaving a as an adventurer party, or picking a chosen in your temple and fort mode, and then suddenly controlling them and going off on a chosen mission that you kind of can define in some way, or you can get from the gods or whatever. There's a million things, of course, that could be done, and I mean, future. I think over in Future of the Fortress, they were just like, let us control the dragon, just let us control the dragon and destroy the fortress whenever they come or whatever, right?
I mean, be a
So
monster mode sounds great if you're
yeah,
talking
yeah, and
right about
it's
that.
all. I think it's all cool. I mean, yeah. I mean, you just do it. You know, if it's done interestingly enough, all four of those options sound great to me. And I mean, people want like Oregon Trail mode where you play the Embark wagon and stuff like that. And like some of those don't hold up until we get more things in the game. But of course, this is how things get put in the game. So I think. Yeah, any of those things viable, but I don't want to like set expectations for the site building to release to be like another mammoth thing, because that's we're trying to avoid that, right? So but there's something and then on to maps, underground maps, and then from there we can sit back again, see where we're at, and come up with another three things or whatever that kind of push all of our little balls forward, including stuff that was left behind with the villains, including stuff from the armies arc that we also were kind of planning to do in the nearer term, and then whatever else has presented itself. I mean, we need to remain flexible.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, like I having any kind of adventure mode features in and fortress mode features kind of blending, I think is something that a lot of people are very excited about. I mean, I think that's maybe the most requested thing ever. I mean, I have this question here that I wrote down, which is, when will we be able to dig? And I kind of feel like that because I think people now have kind of expectations around things like adventure mode, especially like in a world post Minecraft where everybody expects to be able to dig, right? If you find a pickaxe, you should be able to dig with it. And I think that there's that kind of I mean, the reality is people would dig and get extremely lost, right? But things coming to Fortress mode as well is also a very exciting prospect. So I've got one more thing I'd like to bring up regarding adventure mode before we do kind of an intermission question and then move on to Fortress mode stuff, which is trading is confusing, especially in the currency sense where some currencies have value in some locations but not in others, and then you're
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
kind of left to try and translate like whose coin is whose because I don't even know what city I'm in right now. Is there any like intention to flesh out that system or maybe clarify that system, because it does work currently, it's just confusing beyond all get out.
Yeah, I mean I mean we're aware of the complaints. So that's more of a like in the quality of life slash bug fixing realm. So yeah, for sure. I mean, we have right now it's completely opaque. You should just be able to, I mean, if it's not automated in some way, which probably makes sense. I kind of have it kind of goes against the grain a little bit. But I mean, persons shouldn't be like cagey about what currency they're using, right? It's like these things mean that to me. This is a lump of gold to me, which I also appreciate very much. And they should be happy to have piles of gold
Mm.
thrown at them.
Like
And not thrown at them, though. Not thrown.
yeah,
No.
thrown at them, they'll probably lose an eye. If they're lucky, that's all they'll lose. Yeah, I think this came up in like the Future of the Fortress recently, where someone was talking about like a bank or like a currency conversion office or something. I saw someone else talking about tolls to like give you an indication of what coins you need to get into a city. Like they charge you like a silver to get through the front door the first time. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Well, we don't even know where these coins are being made, right? I mean,
yeah,
the amount of coins that are in these cities, there should be a gigantic mint or something, and just sitting there stamping them out
it's
like
just a
like
giant
all
tunnel
day long.
just
Yeah,
burrowing.
and then of course it's like a tradition from back in Ultima, in the 80s or something. You rob it.
Something else that I've seen a whole lot of questions for, which also just popped up in the chat, and I have one noted down here, which is people I think have played a lot of Caves of Cud recently, and they've gotten used to a lot of the very finished game features that Caves of Cut has, and
There it is.
auto
Loved loved by oozes. That's me.
loved by oozes. I became Slog in my last playthrough. It was horrible. But the the question is like, is there any possibility of getting an auto explorer, even like a local area auto explorer, in the future?
Yeah, I haven't thought about what like I mean there are obvious things that need to be um thought through that Caves of Cud wouldn't have had to deal with, which is the unbounded nature of where you're at, right? Because they have screens and levels, right? So your auto explore covers and meticulously, like your little guy will run and rummage through every little thing within a bounded box. That also makes sense thematically because the vertical levels have a kind of thematic a coherence to them, whether they're the outskirts of a town or a level of a dungeon that has a stair up and a stair down. Auto explore is kind of controlled in those ways. Now, for us, it would be like what is auto explore attempting to accomplish, um, and where are you running around? Is
Right.
that something that you drag out? You do drag out a cube and say like, explore this cube for me. And I mean, you've already dragged out then, like 50 times as many squares as normally would be considered by an auto explorer, just because of the verticality of it. But most of them probably don't have anything. Um, but is the question here actually asking for something else because it's addressing tedium, it's addressing things that are missed, right? So as long as we get at that, that seems to be the crux of the matter, right? And yeah, I mean, I'd like to know that, like what when people are considering auto explore, why are they considering it?
I will say I found a movement-based bug in adventure mode, which you might be familiar with. I'm not sure. Where when you go to click on the edge of a wall, if the player character knows that there's a floor above that or like a ramp there, they will try to path up. If you're like 10 Z levels down in the cavern layer and you click on a wall and your character remembers where the surface was, you'll just run to the surface. So
Yeah, I fixed one version of that. It's an ongoing battle, because
I
of
love it.
how you have to be able to click. Yeah, well, that would be a thing to add in, right? And you should be able to do that kind of
Like a
thing.
return to
But
surface button.
exactly. Yeah. As long as it's in your memory map, I mean, why not? I mean, it's like it makes sense. And those things are confusing. As we learned when we tried to do Minotaur mazes the first time, in like, having 3 to 5 Z levels and letting it choose horizontal and vertical passageways without waiting. Like it's just it's impossible to understand. It's complete confusion. And so I mean I understand people just have, I mean it's hard enough navigating one of the non-player forts, that we couldn't even let people start there for now.
It's hard enough to navigate
So
my own
it's
forts.
yeah, it's
Like
it's
three
it's
weeks go
difficult.
by and you
3 is
forget where
hard.
everything is, especially when you're locked into that new
Yeah.
view perspective.
Yeah. No, I mean it's I mean so that's the thing that I'd like to hear about from people is more like what are their use cases and such, and then how can we facilitate that, rather than trying to come up with a general solution that probably doesn't fit.
For sure. So now I have kind of a little bit of an intermission question, which comes in from the real nobody, and they say, "What was the last piece of code you wrote, and what mechanics does it relate to?"
Well, today I was exploring other color models and distances between colors, and converted some open source JavaScript, considered some other color stuff, and came up with some pretty happy conclusions. That was my little works today.
Messing around with color. Color is important.
Hmm.
So
Yep,
the
yeah.
the first thing I have for Fortress mode here, and just kind of a heads up, a lot of my written questions for Fortress mode are essentially just kind of asking you to elaborate on the upcoming Siege update. But
Mhm.
the first question I have here is healing liquids are now in the game, which is I guess you can dupe them very easily because I do that a lot in adventure mode. But for Fortress mode, if you lock a dwarf who's starving to death in a room with a container full of healing liquid, they will consume it. We figured this out. Um, and if you appoint an item as a noble, like a magical item, as a noble's artifact, they don't seem to use the powers. I've tried very
Yeah.
intensively. So when or if or how should we expect to see these kinds of features moved into Fortress mode in some way?
Yeah, so I think we'll get that when we are alluding to defenses against magic. We had this big kind of et cetera after the temple, right? So it's like the things that people kind of clamor for are more likely to kind of happen in this particular case. We know we have those things there. Fluids are a particular case because the dwarves drink alcohol, and then failing that, they know how to get water in specific ways, right? And that's about it. So if the healing liquid were in a barrel and it had an alcohol tag put on it somehow, then they would take care of it just fine. Um, and I think I don't know if I mean I have no idea if contaminating a well helps or anything like that. Does any of that kind of trigger it? Um, and if that works, I don't remember because that's how people did vampire blood at one point. But I don't remember if this would work the same way. Um, you'd have to have someone kind of go there and do that, I guess, or however people were getting vampire blood in the wells, just murdering them or something. But that's a but if you just dropped it in an object, it wouldn't mix, of course. So that one is more like I think would have to be. I mean, you basically want people deliberately doing this stuff in the hospital, right? I mean, you don't want to have to rely on accidents. So I think that's just a matter of sufficient clamoring. Um, maybe then Sunshine will finally have a or the salve, the golden salve. That's what I'm thinking of. Um, maybe that'll actually mean something.
In regards to vampires and wells, the way that you get vampire blood into a well is you take a vampire and you put a spike at the bottom of the well and you make a very
Mm.
shallow well so that it mixes with whatever contaminants are in there. And I think the game just crashed. But such is the way of generating very very large worlds. Um, and then what you do is uh you stab them enough with the spikes so that there's a pool of blood, and then it mixes with the bucket, and
Mm.
then they drink it, and then they become vampire. But retiring and unretiring fortresses negates all
It
contaminants,
negates, yeah,
so I don't know how one would do that with healing liquids, if that would even be
yeah.
possible. You'd have to like get it out of a container somehow, which maybe is possible. I don't know. I've never tried to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, they're pretty zealous about emptying containers. I'm not sure if the military does that with their flasks, but they probably just ignore the flask, I guess, if it was one of those. If it had stuff in it, I mean, they'd probably just dump it. But no, maybe you have to have a military stockpile dump some liquid out of a flask in a way that you could dump it in a well or something. With
Yeah.
well, I don't think it would work that. I just don't think it would work very well. Um, yeah, and blood contaminants don't work. You don't get like drunk drinking alcohol blood the way you should. So that wouldn't work. Yeah, no, it's a depressing situation. We really just need to teach the doctors about it. We need to teach the raiders what they're looking for.
It needs to be a,
Uh,
a thing like plaster for casts, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Just a thing, just
Yeah.
a flat out thing, which raises some questions about. These were questions that have been kind of they've come up in Future of the Fortress several times, which is like when you get to procedural magic systems, which the healing liquids, technically in some sense are, even though it's pretty nailed down. Um, how do you adapt the interface for that, and how do you adapt the creature behaviors for that? And yeah, gotta just do it, and see what we get when we start. As regards the items, um, so I mean, well, first of all, do I have the little creatures in adventure mode been dutifully using their items when they have them, or do they not do it?
If currently in fortress mode, if they're carrying around a adventure mode item with magical spells, they don't seem to use it. At least not that I noticed. I was staring at combat. I had two militia commanders that had them assigned as noble items, so they would wear them around whilst in uniform, and they didn't seem to do anything, and eventually took them off, and left them
Well,
in their bedrooms. But
what I meant was in adventure mode. I mean, are
oh,
they even working there?
if other characters are using them that aren't the player character, I don't know. I've been very greedy
Well,
and
that's
hoarding all
the
my
question.
items.
I mean, because to me it's kind of mystifying just because the code all runs through the same spot.
Right.
So I mean, it could be that the Dreadlord people just suddenly stopped using them, which is not unheard of. And if that's the case, then that's really the fix that has to go in. Because yeah, I mean, I've been cursed by an item in testing, and then of course you say like, well, that's working, and then you move on, and then suddenly it comes to not be the case. But
Hmm.
no, they should work. So yeah, yeah. I mean, they're probably just broken everywhere.
The the
So
the
you're up.
fix recently in this regard that really has me fascinated is necromancers being able to summon nightmares properly, because I recall a fortress way back at the beginning of version 50 where I had a necromancer show up, summon like 100 nightmares, and then just leave. And they were all friendly and started having babies after a while. It was kind of terrifying. I had to set the surface on fire to get
Oh,
rid of them.
that's that.
But
Oh, wow.
I haven't seen them since. So now I'm wondering if like is that going to work in fort mode again now? Because supposedly you can use those powers in adventure mode. I wonder.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember what it was. I think no, we had commented it out specifically in adventure mode because something changed about a little structure that was sent in. So I think it doesn't impact anything in fort mode, but I changed it in two spots, so I'm not 100% sure. Um, I mean, they're supposed to have a timer on them, so they go back, to wherever the hell they're from.
Well, I mean,
But
this seemed really buggy when it happened. But also I seem to have
well, yeah,
miscoded.
yeah, I think, yeah, yeah. Well, that's I'm glad that they can have little nightmare babies.
My next question is, so you want to let siegers dig, but I'm gonna actually use a question that was submitted by the community to kind of elaborate for me. This comes in from Saber, and they say, as you approach the siege overhaul in the future, what is your general philosophy or design priorities? Towards how these new enemy abilities are tuned, increasing the challenge that players experience, or generally making sieges feel more organic overall. What kind of limitations or counterplays would you be considering on these new tools? For as an example, digging or demolition at the disposal of sieges. And what are these temple defenses mentioned in the roadmap?
Yeah, so the idea is first and foremost to make sieges not completely stupid. That's kind of where I'm starting from. It's like the game has fortress in the name, and you can just place up a little wall and cut out that entire section of the game, which feels like that should just be a difficulty option then if that's what the person wants to do, and if they want to engage within it, then it should be the people that are attacking you should be able to do anything that they'd reasonably attempt to do to get into where you're at. Now, I don't particularly care about ramped up challenges in a kind of leveling up sort of way. Uh, and it was always the intention to have kind of these sort of embark scenarios more guiding the sort of storyline of the fort, as it were. So if you were on some kind of war zone border, you would have the trouble that you anticipated having by placing yourself there, and the only thing keeping you out of harm's way is being invisible, essentially, until you decide to show yourselves if you can pull it off. Whereas if you're in the heart of the peaceful areas, surrounded on all sides by fortresses and so forth, and not near enemy places, then you just don't get sieged. That's just not part of what you've selected to do. So here, I mean, there does have to be a bit of like, don't necessarily attack the player the first time as you would in real life with sort of an overwhelming force and commit to victory, because it's a bit annoying, I guess. So there's something still sort of like lingering artificiality about it, probably. But I think the yeah, no, people supposed to have to deal with a bit of trouble. So the level of trouble is kind of, so what we were getting at with this temple defense thing is the cheatiest things the enemy can do, once we have these kind of demon apprentices, for instance, uh, need to be counterbalanced by um, sort of rewarding preparation, in a sense, that if they can just pass through walls, or they can teleport into your fortress, or they can blow apart big chunks of your fortress, then maybe there are ways to mitigate that, right? Because people wouldn't build fortresses if they were that susceptible to those forms of attack, then they're simply useless as everything would go more mobile or whatever. It's just not. There has to be some respect for the fact that you're stuck at this site. And so why can you still be there? Well, then the game needs a method. It's the kind of thing that we'd kind of lean towards slowly making more procedural how it works, but it won't start that way. It'll just start as some method, perhaps multiple methods of being able to just stop that stuff from happening. Whether that's having a kind of maxed out temple, or having to carve runes in the floor. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you can come up with 10 different ways to do it, and we'll pick some. And that would be, I mean, it's funny when you have things like carvings and so forth, because those can be destroyed, or like a statue that's keeping that stuff from happening, and then it's toppled because you put it too close to your bar or something like that, right? That's funny. I mean, that's just amusing. And if you don't protect your statue by having like a little pit around it or something, then you deserve to be destroyed at that point. Just one mistake, we don't mind obliterating you at that point, because it's funny. But that would be, as you experienced with the cave dragon being able to destroy, building destroy, as I recollect.
Yeah.
Um,
They don't seem interested in fighting with the enemy. Oh.
which is, I mean, it's just as well, because I couldn't get the husk graphics, in working on the old save anyway. So I was like, okay, it's fine that
I
that's
mean,
the
the,
way
the
that
thing
went.
that surprised me more was the husks knowing that where traps were. That was something that threw me off. Um,
That's weird. Do they get trap avoid or something? That's that's
no, they
that's
they
bizarre.
don't. So
Oh,
if
do they learn it like a diplomat or something?
they know where traps are that you'd built before they became husks. Once they become husks, if you build new traps, then they don't know where they are. And if they're an enemy that's attacking, they just get caught in the nearest trap.
Yeah. So I mean, is that, yeah?
They
I
remember
wonder
all
if
the
that
traps that were there before they turned, I guess.
I wonder if it's the traps that came back from your caravan when your caravan reported to your own home civ the location of all your traps, just because that's how what the code does. And for humans and elves more, but it does it with your own caravan too. And then if they were your own husky people, then they would be using the former ID number that they had to pull up that list. I don't know.
I kind of like
Possible,
it.
something like that.
I don't know. It makes things
Yeah.
very dangerous, but also kind of fun. It makes you make multiple trap holes ready. I don't know. That fortress still fell over pretty bad, but since we were kind of talking a little bit about digging, I've kind of got two questions on this. The first one is kind of from me, which is how much are the enemies going to be able to dig? Like, should I be like bracing for like a up yours from Independence Day where they just dig all the way down to the Lava Sea over the left and then straight back up? Or are they going to have some pretty tough limitations on that?
I think the idea is that they would have pretty heavy limitations because they're not dwarves. If they are dwarves, we're willing to be more flexible. But if they aren't dwarves, then unless there's some really powerful reason about why they are the way they are, then no, we're more thinking like just the sieges have failed. They or they couldn't find a way in, right? They're literally like looking at a mountain that's flat rock, and they just don't know why they're there. Then just letting them, slowly chip away at it. And if you have some kind of patrol dog or something, then you'd be able to spot it like you can spot artifacts being stolen. You could spot a tunnel entrance or something like that.
Mm.
And maybe it's only like 4 or 5 deep or something. Like they're just not going that fast, but they're just working to access the chunky, meaty little bits, the hairy little bits inside. They're not like trying to sort of lower the Z level of the map until they get to your like just turn it into a strip mine
Yeah.
until they find everything there. That's not the intention. If there's some kind of special as magic goes in over time, for instance, if we get to, oh well, this is some kind of volcano wizard or some kind of earthy thing, and they tear a giant gouge or something, at a kind of rare heavy cost to themselves in some way, and it's just meant to be like this is something that would be more telegraphed as kind of a big climactic thing that happened, with a mega box and everything popping up, and like talking about this general or whatever, whoever's doing this. Then yeah, fine. It's part of you know part of the how the game works is there's now this giant thing you have to deal with. Uh, if it doesn't get canceled out by, for instance, the things we were talking about before
Yeah.
with temples, et cetera, et cetera. But if you've just left yourself exposed to that kind of attack, then that's fine. And that's kind of where we were at with that kind of thing, is that it's not just about like a weird sort of 40 giant moles have begun Swiss cheesing your fortress. um it's just because it's just kind of like when you win the fight, you kind of want to quit, because it's like, I now have to make my fortress not look like garbage. And it's just sort of annoying.
Um,
If there's a way to get around that, that's a different question. I mean, I'm already aware of problems with rewalling and stuff, and people requesting, could we have a more sort of automatic and effective rewalling methods and
yeah.
etc. And that's all in the cards.
Speaking of rewalling, I have a question from a very concerned gardener named Clinodev who says, "Can we have dirt and wall building and moving around, around the time that goblins start digging in gardens during sieges? It would soften the blow considerably if we could say dig and build and with any type of dirt blocks, like we do with clay, or even gate it behind bags like sand."
Yeah, I saw something. I don't remember if it was also in Future of the Fortress that I haven't gotten to yet, but yeah, that's been on my mind a bit. And yeah, understand where people are coming from. Seems like a very reasonable ask, and kind of runs into slightly, not a big problem, but just kind of the like, where did the dirt go question. Like when they were digging it, if you're going to be able to dig and move dirt, then when the enemies are digging and moving dirt, should they start making piles so that you can kind of just put the pile back? Um, yeah, that's always been a thing that's sort of conceit in Dwarf Fortress to playability by not having the sort of realistic mining experience that you can actually do any of this because there's too much stone.
It's too much
Uh,
dust.
and yeah, it's just annoying, and you just drown and be done with. And that's it. So there's but there'll be some solution to that problem. Because I don't want people like when the digging happens to like run out of dirt, for instance, it's just gone because the siege diggers have like gotten rid of it, right? It's like it's gone. You don't get a garden anymore because there's no dirt. And but first of all, they're not digging at that scale to begin with, but
Yeah.
over time, even a small scale becomes a larger scale. And then you eventually lose all of your soil. So I think that's something that, yeah, because people have been bringing it up, especially we're considering. And whether or not, I mean, I don't know if there's a future where you can just send a dwarf off the damn map with a wheelbarrow and they can come back with some dirt. You know, um, that seems like a reasonable enough thing if you really are starting for dirt. Um, uh, yeah,
I think
dirt comes from places, but the time scale is pretty wrong for that.
I think it's less of a like starving for dirt problem and more of a but my aesthetics.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a huge thing just generally with the like people have wanted to build back natural stone walls and stuff like that. It sounds like something a dwarf should be able to do, but it's also like I mean also a bit silly. But I think there's probably some room for that, especially as we start getting into the magic stuff. Um, for people that are like, I would like my worlds to always include just the give me the natural wall back
Yeah.
option. As and then if you have to do something to do that, in a temple or whatever, or that's fine. I think the people that want pretty forts and the people that want to have a really challenging siege, there's no reason they can't cohabitate. And I know some people are concerned about like, do I have to turn off this option if I want to continue playing more or less, with these, with the aesthetics or with the kind of ability to turtle up and so forth. I kind of want to have all of the options on, but also want to just like, well, if I'm well prepared and make a gigantic steel wall, won't that just work? Which has raised the question generally about like digging speeds and how enemies, but also dwarves deal with different materials, which hasn't really been a thing to this
Yeah.
point. And should be. I mean, if there's goblins out there with copper picks and you have like this giant, 5 tile steel wall thing you've built, then I don't think they should, yeah, just be able to just like dig a tunnels. And like at some point your fortress is impregnable and good job.
I would like to see
Um,
a goblin get through a heavy aquifer, personally. Like just dig down and go, bah! It's like just build right one layer above the aquifer. It's like, up yours. Come at me.
yeah. Yeah, I mean there are lots of things like people I think have already done this where they build just like an actual like lava shield around their fortress or whatever, right? Just
All the way to the
everywhere.
lava sea. Just
Yeah, and it goes
constant
up
raining lava.
and back down, and yeah, and so you want to dig through that. Well, now you've got more deaths on your like siege planning route. It's like, and they're everywhere. It's like we have calculated that any way that we attempt to attack this fortress, everyone's going to die. And then, yeah, back to the drawing board, right?
I feel like that's most
It's
forts
like,
right now.
yeah, yeah. Right now, it's just silly. It's just like
Everybody
here's
dies.
here's your trap hallway. We're going to mulch the goblins, and yeah, I mean, goblins don't even get called mulch; they get called like goblinite or whatever. They
Yeah,
aren't
it's a
even. They don't
resource. It's
even.
a mineable resource.
They aren't
Very
even.
valuable.
Yeah, they aren't even organic. They're inorganic. They're so degoblinized by the processes that people put in place. And yeah, everything's on the table for dealing with that. Like we still want you to have the satisfying experience of having a bunch of goblins get chewed up in a trap hallway, but then at some point, if the goblins decide like, okay, now we're going to send a wave of engineers to deconstruct all these traps and also lose some arms in the process because they're not dwarves, or they just want to send a bunch of large chunky critters in there, like get some cows or something, and send a bunch of cows in, or whatever goblin equivalent for a cow is, a troll, but that's not that, those are fighting creatures.
Beak
But
dogs? Mm,
yeah, I wouldn't want to give up my beak dogs either. I just get some go to the nearest human village and get some pigs or
horses.
something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just run them down the hallway. Then your traps are more exhausted than they were before. We got to watch out for FPS problems, of course, when we're doing this, which is why the slightly less satisfying trap deconstruction type thing may be in the works for that.
Yeah.
So it's just, we'll make do with what we've got. But that's the kind of thing we're thinking. It's just like, you know, I think that's all reasonable. I think people should get credit for the defenses they set up, because I mean the thing that should be punished is doing nothing in a game where you have sieges on and then you just pretend they're not on. Like that you're open to everything. I feel at that point that there should be corrective measures taken against that. But if someone sets up a trap hallway, they spent time doing that, and it's a nice, fun idea, and it should work for a bit.
Yeah. Until we figure
Um,
out how to break it.
there, yeah, and there should be reward. There should be a reward for the player. In terms of like having 20 dead goblins all cut up, and then yeah, and then when you shoot the water down that thing, you shoot the magma down that thing. Eventually, the goblins just decide, okay, we're not going that way anymore. Now, of course, you can just reroute walls and place new walls and open new ones, open slightly different routes, and then it's a challenge for me to detect what counts as a different route and what counts as a dangerous place. Do the goblins understand this stuff? When I do this, am I doing like we don't want goblins to be able to understand where everything is instantly to make it seem more cool, but then that means adding a little exploration routine.
Hmm.
Those are easy to flummox with different wall placements and so forth. And I think like I don't care as much about people that spend a lot of time cheesing it. Like that's fine. I want people to not be able to like the cheesing to be so easy that it feels like you're not playing the game right if you don't do it, like
Yeah.
placing a wall.
Yeah.
Like then that's something that I feel like I've got to address. But if people come up with some intricate way to I don't want to get in an infinite arms race because it's not the parts of the game I'm most interested in. But I would like to keep it, at right now the sieges are stupid. If you looking at it as a gamer or whatever, they're just not challenging at all. And you have to kind of decide to engage with them. Then they can be fun or whatever, but you have to decide. You have to make that decision to have fun with them. So and that's not ideal.
Sure.
Yeah,
Speaking of sieges, I guess continuing. I've got my question combined with another person's question. So, you mentioned in the kind of coming soon features for sieges a rework for the currently two-dimensionally locked siege weapons, more or less, like because I can't aim up or
yeah,
down and they're very limited. And there's a question here from Dung Runner where they say, "Will you let catapults launch random objects of your choosing?" And I'm going to elaborate on that and say, kind of what's your plans for siege weapons?
yeah. So the we already have artists at work. We're going to let you point them and have little firing, some kind of firing graphics. So let's just go. I mean, there's the two current ones, right? You have the ballista and the catapult. So the ballista, we want it to be aimable, with some kind of field of fire, and we want the projectiles to be able to respect Z levels. Basically, aim it, shoot it at things, and but it's stationary. You still have to bring a big bolt to it, and it doesn't fire super fast. So that still limits its effectiveness, but it's not like a hallway only weapon now or something like that, right? So that's a starting point for that one. The catapult is annoying because in 3D a launched projectile lands on a point, right? And so if you don't have some kind of area of effect thing, then they're going to always be worthless. Or if you don't have some kind of special projectile. And also, the catapults have that four directional problem. That sucks. So getting catapults aiming. Now we've got parabolic paths that we use for mine carts, and there's a bit of a problem with the sky being pretty low. But if you respect the parabola, then you're going to be shooting at locations. And defensive catapults, were a thing. They're obviously better the other way, but and we don't have any plans at in this first juncture to do like the giant moving siege parts and things like a giant siege tower type thing,
Mm,
where you would have fun blowing it up with a catapult or something, right? But in this, the way people make their maps versus real life castle walls, like planning something like a siege tower, they just wouldn't work, right? I mean, they would be a very rare circumstances where a goblin siege tower would actually do
almost
anything.
seems more like something you'd
Uh,
encounter in adventure mode than something you'd see in fort mode.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. When we understand what the humans have done with our walls, then you can have a much more fun sieging them with a tower. Sure. And so in this case, catapults, it's more about, as the questioner suggests, what are we putting in the catapults? And if you put a rock in there, does it have like an AOE type shard effect or something to make it at all worthwhile? That's possible. And then, yeah, but why not? Why not put some other crap in there?
Sure.
As for what that is, I don't know if we have anything cool enough yet, or if we'll have to add some new stuff. And of course, people want to be able to put, prisoners in there. People want to be able to put cows in there. People want to be able to put dwarves with axes in there or something, as long as they have a soft landing somehow. You know, I think there will be things, because we're going to do a lot of ranged combat changes, and crossbows will be kind of more and less effective because you won't be screwed over after your shot, having to wait like 5 steps and then just dying and making them completely useless. Um, so I think in the end that's going to kind of get rid of some of the Dwarf Fortress machine gun effect that the crossbow people can currently have. And so just to put that right back in the game, we're just going to add repeating crossbow emplacements. So those things, even though the inventions in real life, like these things did exist, they just weren't that effective because the chains would always like jam up, because that's because humans aren't dwarves. They can't make a good chain,
I
you know?
do have a question in regards to the siege weapons, because for me the biggest hang up with
Mhm.
siege weapons isn't necessarily the angle that they aim at right now. Like, yeah, that's part of it. It would be nice if they could aim up and down, if they were a little bit more malleable, if you could do more with them. The problem that I have with them is the fact that they're run by civilians. So the second they see an enemy coming, they run away in fear. Is there going to
Oh yeah,
be
yeah.
some mechanically
I've got
designed way
that.
around this, or
I've got that written down. Yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah, that's just not going to happen.
okay, cool.
That's no longer the yes, because
And
that's silly.
you were talking about like goblin siege towers as like a hypothetical. What if trolls could just pick up the goblin and throw them?
Yeah, I mean that's a happy thing, isn't it?
That's what I want.
Um,
I just want to watch a goblin fly over my wall and laugh.
yeah,
That's all
yeah,
I
they'd
want to
have to
see.
know. Like, I guess they, I guess they'd. It's like the jump code, except your jump code is slightly improved. You like get more up, like
It's
you
like
get
jumping
a
off
few
of a
Z
mount.
levels. Yeah, yeah. So you can be like, okay, the trolls have like the slow learner tag though, don't they? So they might not be reasoning perfectly here.
Well, I mean,
And some
goblin mount
sometimes they,
troll and fly.
yeah, goblin thrown and didn't quite clear
Splat.
the pit. Yeah, that's fine. That's
I
fine.
mean, that's what everybody
Yeah,
actually wants, right? It's just comedy. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, and I think I mean there's a lot of room for because yeah we're gonna have some fun with this, and that's part of the
sure.
point is to have fun with this. And we have yeah there's various little undercurrent ideas that could be amusing. That I mean I wanted to save some because I want you for instance to suddenly die and not know
Oh yeah, I'd be
that.
surprised. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
hunting
So
me.
that'd be
Oh,
fun.
that's great.
I'm well. Everyone's being hunted here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. And I'll be hunted as well when people start. Yeah, just
Wondering why
easily
their forts
cheesing
are dying.
everything. Well, that too, but yeah, that well, that's that. Yeah, I don't want that kind of hunting, but that's going to happen too.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, but we're not. We don't cheat, you know. I mean, people wonder how like the artifact was stolen, or wonder how the thief got away with this item. There was always a path, right? Wonder how the animal got through their cavern. It's because they left a hole in the ceiling or something, or they climbed a tree, right? I mean, we don't cheat. So we're gonna be going after the forts fair and square and see what we can accomplish.
I'm looking forward to it. Speaking of fun, currently the underground cavern critters, like the rodent men and your amphibian men, are kind of ridiculous. I think they're like the one real cause of like frame rate destruction right now
Yeah, no,
in the game,
yeah,
and they come in like unstoppable numbers. And the only real solution is to just nerf them in the difficulty settings down to reasonable numbers. So that this is something else that's noted in like the up and coming features. I'm just curious what your plans or ideas for them are.
yeah. No, that just have to be redone. I mean, the right. I mean, Putnam just sent me a save that had a huge frame rate loss, and it wasn't just because of the numbers themselves. Is because when they sent a squad to go kill them, there were so many deaths of meaningless creatures that it created 6,000 witness reports for the justice system. Like, hey, I saw an amphibian person die. And it's just, I mean, there's just a lot of things about them that need to be fixed. They've kind of fallen into the cracks a little bit because they used to have all those little cool things. Like they used to be able to come up through the wells in the 2D version. They used to be able to fly around on their mounts on these little patterns and shoot paralyzing blow darts at you and stuff like that.
Closer to like
And
gremlins almost.
yeah, it's just like yeah, there's lots of yeah, there's just I just don't and I'm not sure like in this I mean the first thing is just to make them go away and not appear until it's dealt with. And then the question is how much we're going to change before we get to understanding like who they are and where they live and that kind of stuff. Um, are they just going to be another little ramped up challenge? Or we don't really think of them as diggers, but that could be a thing if they're scratching away at the cavern walls if you've walled yourself up completely. Um,
The thing
yeah.
that seems to irk me personally the most about them right now is that if there's too many of them on the map, you don't get any grundles or trolls just randomly wandering into the caves because they seem to take up all of the animal population limits or something, as kind of the way
Oh
it
God,
seems.
yeah.
So
It's
like
probably the case, yeah.
I like wanting like like cave crawlers or like jabbers, and you're hoping so that you can tame them and do some fun things in that regard. It kind of, at least for me, I lose a bit of the excitement there because I'm hoping that I would get
No, and
these exotic animals,
as
but
they currently stand, I mean, I would just say as they currently
so I
stand,
just turn them off.
the I would delete them from the raws. Yeah, I just get rid of them. I'd make them way gone.
That
Although,
or just
I'd
nerf
keep
them down to
keep them
like
in,
three at a time
yeah,
is
yeah.
pretty
Just
fun.
just 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 make them go away. Yeah, don't delete them from the raws, or else your save won't have them when they come back. But but it's yeah. No, they suck. They just
Okay,
suck. They're
good
probably the
to know.
worst thing right now. Yeah, definitely.
The we're getting close to the questions to the end of the questions for Fortress mode, but we got one from Martin here, which is combat styles and flow were mentioned in the dev post. Reading about them on the development page, they seem both very interesting, and among the features listed under them, what would you like to add most, regardless of how feasible it is?
Um, so it's a tie probably. Well, no, because I've got okay. So there. Mm, don't make me decide.
Now you can pick two.
Uh,
I'm fine with that.
yeah. Well, I want four. Oh no,
Oh,
okay. Okay, let me step back. I want reach. I want reach because a spear is not a dagger, and it's silly, and I want that, and that I want that to carry over to the big creatures as well. But I want the slightly silly thing where you can jump on the big creatures because that's fun, and that makes adventure mode better. That makes fort mode better because they're dwarves and they can jump up on a guy. And that's fun. And then when I get to but the like the procedural person in me wants all of the like gnarly like procedural moves and stances and stuff like that. um and I mean, I guess those are the things. There's probably more though. I like all that stuff.
troll wrangler squad.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
grab them
No,
by
they
the
got a lot of
horns
hair.
and ride them in the
Well, they
wrong
got
direction.
wool, right? The wool is great. I mean, you can really,
Yeah,
yeah,
Shadow
you
of the
can,
Colossus. That
yeah, you can grab it and it's tie it around. It's like, yeah, bull riding or whatever. You're just on that sucker, and then yeah, yeah, 8 seconds, get your points.
So now my last fortress mode related question comes in from I'm gonna butcher this name. They have two names listed here, and then one of them is PA90. So I'm just gonna go with PA90. And they say, is there plans to revert or look into the clothing layer system from version 47? As it currently stands, only a few layers for civilians and nobility and other non-combat positions: bodywear, headwear, underwear, legwear, overwear, and footwear, over and under, are chosen, in contrast with the Legacies versions where they would run around with a trillion items equipped. Basically, is this an intentional change or is this an unintended change?
There was some reason behind it. I mean, it must have been 5 years ago now, but no, there was something annoying about it. I mean, it was related to the underwear bugs and stuff where they would not put on underwear and then feel ashamed for the rest of their lives after the first one rotted off or whatever. Um, which is just yeah, which is non-ideal. But and I don't know if it had to do with frame rate stuff from having too much crap as well. Probably.
Mm.
But yeah, no, I mean, I'd have to look into that because I think there was some technical stuff going on there. But I mean, I certainly like having the layers because I originally had them. I mean, I had those specifiers for 3 different levels at least for every body part and stuff. It does get a bit fiddly with all of the items.
I will say, like, the frame rate's a lot better these days. So small frame rate savers are maybe not as much of a concern, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a different era. We've got multi-threading and stuff. Little micro threads everywhere you
go to
go.
multi-thread the clothing,
Yeah, well,
individual
that's
stitches.
warp and weft or whatever. Yes, all of the things. But yeah, no, I think it's. I mean, I'm not sure what's. I mean, I've kind of lost track of what is not there anymore in terms of clothing or whatever.
Fair
Um,
enough.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So there's a big thing coming up soon, which I know a lot of people are eagerly anticipating. Um, could you talk to me a little bit about Lua?
Yeah. So Putnam has put together a conversion of the file that creates all of the random objects or like the different, you know, items and forgotten beasts, syndromes of various kinds, necromancers, vampires, mummies, intelligent undead, zombies, husks, and die rolls and everything but the instruments because it turns out the musical instruments are the hardest one to write the scripts for because they're just more involved. So most everything has been converted, and we're going to release that soon. It's ready to go. We're just having some little tech problems. It shouldn't be more than you know I don't know, a week or two or something. And yeah, so then we'll have that all out there in just a new moddable folder, just called generators or something like that. Just like vanilla generators, and then you can do whatever you want. And the limitation now is, of course, the they're the things that they are emulating or replacing or are identical to or whatever, the forgotten beasts, vampires, and etc. That's how the game interacts with them. So you can run a script and it makes a thing. Um, but we haven't, for instance, converted the rest of the code base over. So if you're saying like, well, we just get to basically write df hack or write the vanilla interface in Lua scripts that are moddable? Not yet. We haven't written that part up. That's like something we want to do though. I mean, we want to get the scripts up. If the scripts are happy and the scripts are going well and everything's great, then yeah, why not? Why not get the interface up in a way that can be changed by everybody? That's
Right.
cool. And then that would allow other strange things to happen, of course, because people always do more than you expect. So, but the starting point is you'd be able to write your own Forgotten Beast type code. You'd be able to write your own necromancer style syndromes and things, which you could already kind of mod in the end results of that into regular mods. Like you could put an interaction mod and have it go in. Of course, people have done giant magic mods and stuff like that. And you could put new creatures in, but now you can put in the generators of those creatures, right? So they follow right now the same framework, but that's going to loosen up quickly as the Lua comes into use by well, me to do the myth and magic stuff. I'm going to be needing more capabilities, and then all of those things now will immediately be available for modders to use as well. So we're just trying not to hide anything in the code anymore. And when it comes to new stuff that would normally be in this kind of generated raw file, I mean, it still works the same way though. So all your old mods will still work. That's an important point, right? That the output of these things is still the kind of silly bracketed language I've been using for mods. So that all still works. So you don't have to learn if you don't want to learn any Lua stuff. You don't have to. You can still produce stuff for the game the same way you have been doing up to this point. But now you've got more power, and the power shall increase.
The Lewis subject is fascinating to me because it's a pretty big change, at least as far as like modability goes, which is something that people talk about and focus on and think about a lot in games like this. So it's maybe one of the kind of upcoming things that I'm the most curious about because I think it's maybe the biggest unknown. Like everything else, you like the siege stuff, you can kind of just imagine it and just go like, okay, I can kind of see how that would look in game, but it's just this is kind of like a new realm. So I think what I want to do in the Lewis subject is at some point is have Putnam on and record a video and just discuss that specifically. But the next thing I have on here for my list of topics is well, the map rewrites, right? Like, is that
Yeah.
still going to be similar to what we've seen for ages on the um, on the devlogs, or has that plan changed in any major way?
So yeah, this is not the map rewrite. If you're talking about the new item, the 2025 dev page item, because that was a thing that was going to take a year or something,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is not that, and the good thing. So this is a portion of that. This is the portion of that that involves mostly making the underground more interesting for fortresses, and in the as a side effect of that, it makes the underground and caverns and dungeony things more interesting for adventurers as well. And the things that make them interesting will overlap a great deal. So basically, we've had very little control over being able to just put a cool dungeon or put a cool lost whatever underground in a little cube and put it there and have it be a thing because of the sort of overwhelming nature of the giant three cavern layers that kind of hug the altitude and have global concerns about connectivity and such. That's kind of just sucked the life out of what I've been able to do underground.
Mm-hmm.
And now that was going to be a giant excision that took a long time, and at the same time gave us things like pocket planes and floating islands and everything else. Now we're going to be a little more careful about that, or at least have to keep a release schedule of any reasonableness. So we'll be kind of working within the constraints of having the old underground layers and then sort of teasing out things inside of them until the new structure takes them over entirely. By which I mean connected rectangular solids, etc., that have more thematic coherence and are more interesting instead of always being the same, while at the same time keeping the possibility for having giant, Underdark style uh, undergrounds. So they'll just be more control over what I can put down there.
Sure.
And yeah, that has a lot of there's a lot of constraints put on us by the fact that the fortress doesn't move.
Yeah.
It's like if you place a fortress, a 1 by 1 fortress, or a 2 by 2 fortress or something, and you look at it from the top down, it had better see lots of different things at different altitudes, looking that way. You don't really want a 1 by 1 embark to just be shut out entirely because your rectangular solids or whatever didn't, line up correctly. Even though they make for more interesting environments to find. You also have to be careful, as we are with it with human towns and so forth, of um, what happens if you embark on half of an interesting thing, right? That still works, or that's maybe in some cases simply not allowed, even if it kind of spoils the surprise that it exists. It's like a 2 by 2 fortress simply isn't going to work here, and sometimes we need to um, just eat that. That's possible. And we can say that in whatever way, but if the feature is 2 by 3 and would work best that way, then that's something we'll have to think about. But basically, yeah, trying to set up this new underground environment so that we just inject a lot of life into exploration and fort mode. When you're going down, um, your choices that you have to make about what you're going to do will be informed by what you find, which is hardly the case now.
Yeah, no, I mean that's something I think that like it's kind of funny because like we're stuck in this terminology and things for so long now that like I'm seeing questions in both chat rooms right now about like so like are we getting updates on the Myth and Magic update? And it's like well we're kind of in it right like that's really where we're at this point like things are just coming in slowly and just not in one big bulk box but some things have been left behind that some of us were really excited for that then, you had to go off and make all this pesky UI for
Oh,
so long.
oh yeah,
But
yeah,
we're
yeah,
returning to villains soonish, I think.
exactly.
Once you revisit the villain stuff, what kind of villainous plots could we expect our forts to be subjected to?
So there's like the six that we didn't get to that are already in World Gen, right?
Mm.
The overthrowing, the so that's the plotting of the coup, right? That's a big one. Just literally corrupting and destroying your fortress. We already did the artifact heist. There's assassinations. And then there's the kind of ones that make less, sort of a bit less sense, without, some backing to them. Like they can corrupt human officials as a way of getting a financial advantage, right? And that's like, what does that mean in terms of like, I mean, you basically just have your goods in your fortress that go out by the caravan. So is that, do we want to start, pilfering stuff from the fortress and like sneaking it out in the caravan and stuff like that? Well, be funny. And having to deal with that, would be something the player becomes interested in, right? It's like, if a bunch of your treasures or gemstones or masterpieces or whatever disappear, and you can have your little investigator dwarves trying to figure out who saw what and who did what, and then you actually figure it out. That's kind of cool. So that's always kind of fun. And there was another one or two. It's been a very, as you know, it's been like 6 years since I
Yeah,
looked at this stuff, so I don't remember one or two of them, but they're in there, right? And that that includes thing. I mean, there was one in there, I think, for the vampires, like promising immortality to people and stuff like that, and twisting people that way. I mean, having the vampires be more interesting in the fortress would be part of that. Like right now, they just suck blood randomly and try and chill out and stay hidden. But if they started some kind of weird immortality cult, that would be a blast.
yeah,
Um, and so forth, right? So that was all pretty cool. That those are the basic villainous plots that already exist. And then there's like, well, what about the rest of the villainous plots that could exist?
assassinations and
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah. It's time for that sometime. Who knows when? Because that's the big hanging one. Like that and the army stuff were like
Hmm.
the things that didn't get a place in this little burst of dev notes, right?
Yeah,
But everyone's fighting for their spot now. And I think the thing with some of the like big adventure parts of the villain thing, like the big investigations and stuff, that we're planning to have these kind of large, overarching villainous organizations that you work your way through and all that kind of stuff. We're still looking for a way to break that into smaller pieces, because that's part of the one of the requirements now for us to slap something up on the dev page is for it to be in a chunk that gives us some kind of tangible advancement to the game without taking 2 years. And that's exactly what the villain stuff was doing, was taking 2 years. So it's like I think there's a path forward there, and we're still looking for it. I imagine it's going to just be all gummed up with the other things that are happening, like the magic stuff and how it relates to anything from chosen mode stuff to new underground stuff to cross mode play with fort mode or something, or cabin
yeah.
building stuff, like that is all going to get kind of mixed in there. And now the idea is just to build it brick by brick and get it all done.
We've been talking on and off every couple of months, and then I guess almost a year break between the last rounds. And every single time it's been working on graphics, working on graphics, working on graphics, working on UI, moving menus, and very little in the way of more traditional Dwarf Fortress development. So now that we're kind of getting back into the thick of it in the way it once was, what are some systems that, or just things in general, that you're excited to get to working on that are not scroll bars?
Yeah, that's right. Well, they're on the list mainly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big thing. Is like I put stuff up there that was gonna be fun to work on. This is a rare opportunity, so I'm excited to get to the siege stuff and the maps. I'm excited to see which way the cabin building like rewrite goes, because that's a really kind of, I mean, we left a huge like wiggle room in there in terms of the crossplay stuff, and also what kind of crafting type stuff goes in there. That's yeah, that's going to be it'll be exciting to pick and then do something there. And there's little things like that color thing I answered in like the early question is not up there. It's just a thing that it was something that's been on my mind, and recently got prodded to look at it again. And yeah, so we'll have something going on there, related to dyes and stuff. I think that's just gonna happen at some point, and I get to do that now. I get to do more of that, where a lot of the great things in Dwarf Fortress came from little larks that weren't really on a development page, right?
Yeah.
I mean, or they were, but they were not the thing that was going to be done, right? So I think that's exciting to me to be able to do a little bit of that while still, pushing the main release points forward. If I just got something to get out of my system a little bit.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. For me, I'm really happy to see the game getting back to this kind of era, I guess, because like from it kind of felt like we were in the long wait without a warning, in a way. Even though like stuff was coming out, right? It's cool to see new systems coming into the game again and moving to that kind of era. I do have a couple remaining user questions here, which I'm gonna kind of crunch through here. This one might relate to the map rewrite stuff, but this comes in from Garfield Fan. And they say, will there ever be more content added to the circus? It feels quite empty, and sure, it's difficult, but past that difficulty here, there really isn't that much to do down there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, it sucks. I mean, it's really it's
I wouldn't say it
not that
sucks, but
interesting. Well, people have fun with it, sure.
yeah,
I mean, it doesn't suck as much as those amphibian people or whatever.
sure.
That actually sucks. But no, it's not nothing. I mean, it's just not that interesting. I mean, the kind of thing we did with the little extra, stuff that you can dig into on the way down. That's also that was just kind of a basically a pressure relief valve when I was working on graphics and UI just to throw some new stuff in the game.
Mm,
But no, I expect that to be if that's not part of the underground changes this time, which is I mean that's possible. Then uh, it's going to be one of the kind of big casualties of the not casualty really, but of the actual myth stuff when that starts up is yeah. I mean, what is it like? What does it mean to start changing what the metaphysics of the world
certainly.
are? Cutting that is one of the possibilities, right? It's just you have something else. Now, is it one of those things where there must be kind of the servant of the game here, like you're digging down. There's always got to be something down, right? Maybe. I mean, as long as the game is giving you, some big things to look at, um, that's enough. If it's not about, the standard Tolkien story of delving too greedily and too deeply, et cetera, then it's fine. I mean, it can be something else entirely. There's all kinds of hubris and otherwise available. Um, yeah. So I think that if the person is asking in a kind of more limited setup here, like we have that, and we want to make it better, then, well, I mean, it's like you could put more stuff down there, but I think that amounts to the same thing as doing the map rewrite above, and it's like
Sure.
making everything more interesting is more interesting, and there's got to be an end point just because physically there is. Z equals zero in memory is the same as like minus 134 in your world or whatever. But yeah, z equals zero. That's it. So uh, making that stuff more interesting, certainly more reasonable. I mean, we have like these. I think like there's something to the fact that the demon escaped from the underworld, and then these like they all did basically because none of the ones that you find during the kind of circus explosion or whatever um are intelligent goblin leading style demons, right? They're all kind of these animal types. Whether they're smart or not, I mean, I don't even remember what the flag is set at, but they're all living in populations, right? They're not unique like the goblin leading ones are. And that's strange to me. I mean, we had notes variously about being able to find, and it's kind of like when we had that sword that you could pull. Like it was occasionally you'd find a big demon fortress.
Hmm.
That was a for some period of time in the game the case, right? That you could pull this sword, it would open this portal, and then that was connected to a large, like, I don't, was it a large Slade tower that was filled with rooms
Yeah, those
that had
exist.
demons. It was just kind of a weird thing, but the idea, broadly speaking, was that there would be, more intelligent adversaries that could be underneath you. And then
Oh,
that's an interesting, both in terms of the underworld and above the underworld, right? Is like, what does it mean for you to put your fortress on top of a place that is settled? And first of all, what does it mean to your frame rate? It's the first thing to think about. The second thing then is the interesting part. So yeah, got to be careful one way, but the other way, yeah. I mean, I think it's all going to kind of bleed together a bit. Um, but we'll yeah. So I mean, in this, yeah, those are the different answers to that question, and some not as satisfying, but
sure.
that's
I
yeah.
think that's a very satisfying answer personally, and chat keeps asking me to tell you this, so I will pass it along. Which is, you don't need to be so hard on yourself. Like I think that there's a lot of things in this game that people really like that are really cool that they just want to see them better. It's not necessarily mean that the current state is bad, with the exception of maybe the underground invasions. But like the actual stuff that's there is liked. It's just we want more of it, right? Um,
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm depressed. I think it's just because
yeah.
I'm switching gears, right? I'm switching gears and coming face to face with not having worked on this stuff for a long time. And there's a lot to do.
Yeah. In regards to demons, I did once manage to successfully ask a demon for directions, and it told me that there was no way out of here. So I thought
Hmm?
that was relevant, and then it smashed my face in because my legs were broken because I landed on Slade. So that can be entertaining sometimes. Um, I've got a question here from Derek, and they say, are there plans to move some events of World Gen to be able to appear post World Gen, even in the time playing? For example, I'm pretty sure that the Nitral conversion or construction of new temples can't happen outside of World Gen. And if the answer is yes, where would be the line? Can we expect these revelations of secrets and life of death outside of World Gen, like necromancer towers appearing, I would presume, or new necromancers being created?
Yeah. So so ideally, World Gen, like everything was supposed to. I mean, everything was supposed to be put forward, and I mean that includes, like, the yearly foot race with the candle procession in some of these towns, right? I mean, they have things like that in World Gen, which are like programming in a like crossbow throwing or whatever weird stuff they've done contest, and then having a procession from point A to point B to commemorate the ascension of the first ruler, or whatever different reasons they have, is a large project that is just not as useful for the game to do. Whereas other things, like creation of a temple, etc., are of course you know good things to put in post world gen. So I think, and there's also post world gen, and then fort mode, adventure mode, right? And we had been trying and failing every time, pretty much, to add a feature into world gen, get it looked at in adventure mode, and put it into fort mode, and then as we're constantly reminded, this scheme has failed every time, because it's too much work. I mean, there's just too much work, and then there's too much pressure to get a release up, as the months and years tick on. So a lot of things remain in world gen, right? And coming up with a new way of thinking about that, or a new way of thinking about adding things, or whether or not everything's just going to kind of remain different between the modes. I mean, that's probably something we'll have to live with now. Uh, so I mean, and we're seeing. I mean, he's got a new one with these mythical things because they had to remain static in world gen. It's kind of an unusual case where they had to remain static in world gen so that the adventurers would be able to use them, because otherwise they'd just all be destroyed, and then you would have no tutorial. Um, so there's and that's going to just be a constant problem now, thinking going forward about how to continue to expand and integrate those without ruining whatever tutorialization we end up with. So yeah, so there's things like and things like night trolls. Like we didn't want to add night troll attacks to fort mode until you could rescue people for obvious reasons. So then, not too long ago in the arc of the video game, we got raids, right? We got the ability to send out squads, and now that's put that back on the table. So that's kind of the life of that world gen feature. Is that it did finally roll back around into possibility because we can make that complete story arc now, instead of having people be converted to trolls every single time, which is just depressing. I mean, the kidnapping is bad enough, um, but at least that had a story arc associated to it instead of just a kind of a depressing coda.
It is some of the more grim
So
body horror in Dwarf Fortress, that's for sure.
yeah, oh, it's horrible. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's one of these things where we went through all of these different folklore, stories, and when we were divvying up the night creatures, and that one was just one we ran into. I don't remember if it was like Norse or Icelandic or where those trolls, that particular type of troll came from. But that was not an invention of ours. That's a some kind of fairy tales type story about troll spouses. And so yeah, but it is yeah, it's pretty messed up. So yeah, and that's I mean that could be another reason why it hasn't quite made it into fort mode either. I don't know. But that's yeah, anyway, it's just example by example. I mean, you pretty much have to go example by example. We always want to try and unify the modes, but there are many pressures stopping it from happening.
Makes sense. I have a question here from Salty Crab, and I'm also going to add a little addendum onto the end of it, which is hello, Mr. Toady. I wanted to ask, are there any plans to make waves nice again? And also, if more creatures outside of the procedural system are going to exist. Thanks and have a nice day. And my little addition to it is, will we ever get multicolored floors again in the graphical mode, or is that just going to be an ASCII feature?
Okay. So, one at a time. Waves, we've had a number of art calls now where we've touched upon the waves, and there was always some other thing going on, and waves are hard. So we still, yeah, we definitely want to do the waves. It may involve more coding to kind of, because the ASCII waves kind of have this static shape that moves forward that's determined in advance by the coastline, which kind of, it's not great looking. So there might need to be some changes there to make graphical waves passable at all. But yeah, no, that's definitely something that we've it's on our Trello. In other words, it's there.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's a thing we're aware of. The second one, which was new creatures. Yeah, I mean we have we've done the tablet thing once for fun again. I've been drawing a little bit actually, just for fun to kind of try and it's something I never did, you know. So I got a little sketch pad and started drawing some things. Um, some of them could end up there. Zach draws things. Yeah, some of them can end up there. We've been talking about new creatures a bit, in the context of the map rewrite, for instance, and in the context of the siege rewrite. Actually, we've talked a bit about it. So. Yeah, yeah, I think that's a possibility, for sure. And well, not for sure. That's not what a possibility is it? I need to work on my English, but anyway, yeah, that's something we've been thinking about and taken some steps toward. And finally, the addendum that you added about multicolor floors. So we every time we've kind of thought about doing that art wise and looked at it a little bit, it was just busy and it needs to be controlled somehow. And that's pretty much the only issue with it is that, um, yeah, just not having it look terrible.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think
So
it
I think
looks
it,
kind of beautiful in ASCII, although it does look busy. I will agree.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's solvable probably, with some, I don't know. I'm not an artist, so I wouldn't even suggest the method, but
Yeah.
it might be cool. I know things just need to be muted, a bit. Yeah, it's something that, there's a small technical hurdle to overcome as well regarding the edging.
Hmm.
So, we can only pass so many bits around when we're talking about what edge tile set we're using, and only have so much graphics for that. And that those would quickly multiply if we had one for every kind of mineral color or whatever, up to 100 colors or whatever, would suddenly have 100 times as many edges, right? And that's a bit costly, but probably
Sure.
manageable in some sense.
The next question I have here is sent in by Anonymous, which I do say typical. But there was several questions on this subject, and this was just the most well worded one. And they almost all of them, except for one, came in anonymously, which I think is kind of funny. But the question is as follows: how do you feel about the use of AI in things like secondary content, like in-game books, random lore, jokes, background conversations, or in general for things like code optimization, art, and other sundry tasks?
So I assume they're talking about the newest definition of AI, which is
Yeah.
like a really specific, like, search engine type AI with
Yeah.
the chat models and stuff like that. Because yeah, it's like, because I just saw a video going around. It was like, Tarn talks about 6 different uses of AI, but it was from 7 years ago, so it means something completely different
Yeah.
than then. Now I look like I'm trying to sell the models or whatever. It's just, yeah.
It's like the
But
CEO
no,
of
I mean,
EA
for
Games
I
talking
mean, for
about
me,
how their company's been based on AI from the beginning. It's like, no, no, it hasn't. What are you talking about?
But I think, if looking at, for instance, Cud's books, right? I mean, it fits the setting beautifully. They don't use those models because they predate those models. But they use something, vaguely similar. I don't remember what corpus they trained on. I don't think they violated any copyrights or whatever. And and that's the issue, right? Is like if you're going to use one of the newer models, then, I mean, there are lawsuits currently active and all kinds of stuff going on there. And I personally don't like any of it, just because I can't control the output. I mean, that's why I don't have anything like, even like Cud's books, using different, like, Markov chain methods and things like that, or even like the waveform collapse generation stuff they're doing for maps. Like, for me, it's like I need lots of abstract data structures in layers above it that I understand. And you can't understand those models,
Sure.
their output in any usable way. So it's all like, it just feels like a dead end, in that sense, even though, it produces something that's beyond what my systems produce. I can't use it to continue to expand the game. So, it's not kind of fun or interesting to me in that context.
Yeah.
And of course, some of it's fun to read or we'll look at or whatever. But, that's where I'm at with that stuff. I mean, in terms of, I mean, I don't know if they mean more broadly about, like, what I think of it or whatever. I mean,
I
I don't
mean,
really like it.
they do ask about automating random tasks, which I think the issue that I have with this subject in general, because like their question was like, how do you view the use of AI in things like secondary content? It's like, well, what is secondary content? I guess in this instance, like, are they saying that there's content in the world that's disposable? As like, then it just proves that you're not reading what people in the background are saying well enough, because you're learning
Yeah,
about things in the
yeah.
world. And like, the poems that you see aren't one-offs. Those come from a specific place, and you can write those in adventure mode and then have them appear in fort mode and stuff like that. So it's, I think, the persistence that's there, and it's kind of the discounting of the persistence that I think is the problem. But I don't know. I mean, I was talking earlier today about I use a large language model that I have downloaded locally to grammar check my blog posts, but I don't ask it to change it. I just tell it to tell me where I've screwed up, so I can go in and edit it, and it's making my grammar better.
I mean, it is a spell checker. I mean, a spell checker is using a large corpus of data, which is just like words that have spellings, right? So I mean, there's I mean, these things are useful. And it's just a question of whether or not we're stacking up the bodies while we're making them.
Yeah, I would avoid stacking the bodies.
Yeah.
I will say this. I've taken almost 2 hours or over 2 hours of your time now because of the technical difficulties. So I'm gonna, I think, kind of wind this down a little bit by saying, since we last did this, we've both moved. I now live in the capital of British Columbia. I'm in Victoria now. I moved at the beginning of this month, and you've moved continents. So how's the UK been?
The UK's been great to me. Yeah, things are nice here. I like my sausage rolls and pub things and Indian food. It's all gonna be about foods and drinks here, of course. But no, there's that people have been friendly, and I understand them well enough, which is good. Yeah, there are some challenges. Like I still kind of do a double take when someone says "all right," and it's just like a "what's up" thing, kind of right. And I'm just like, I don't know, am I on fire or whatever? And yeah, but it's good. That's good. I've already started adapting some of the speech patterns. People ask me if I want to do something. I say I could do.
I do like this question from chat, which is: have you either had one forced on you, or have you chosen a footy club to support?
The audio cut out.
My audio cut out.
Yeah, just I did my mistake. I didn't get the question.
Oh, I was just gonna say: have you had one forced upon you, or have you chosen a football club to support?
Oh well, I mean, so people told me I support the Canaries, and that's revealing the city where I'm at, and that's fine. So because I'm already going to be speaking at a university thing here, so I mean that's all more or less public. That's what they've told me.
Is that going to be recorded anywhere? The speaking thing?
I don't know. They don't tell me anything. Yeah, it's just another one of the little talks. I've given talks at many weird little university talks that mostly aren't recorded. It's like they mostly are just in front of like 30 people, and then that's that.
Oh man.
Which is cool. I mean, it's stuff I've said elsewhere mostly. I mean, so it's nothing's really lost that much.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, more or less. Yeah, it's not like there's big reveals or anything like that. Yeah, so that's what I've been told. I haven't been to a game. I don't know anything about it. I know the colors. So that's yellow and green, I believe.
I just watch Formula One, so I also know nothing about football.
Yeah.
But what I do have to say though is congratulations on
thank you
since we last spoke. So that was the big news that came out for all of us. It was awesome to see. So
yeah, it's great. It sure is great. Yeah, no, I like being married. It's nice.
Well, I'm glad things have been going well in the ways that they can. So I think we're gonna wind down now. I look forward to speaking with you again, hopefully in less time than 11 months. And I have to say a huge thank you for you donating your time to, me and the, I don't know, roughly close to 1,000 people probably watching between two platforms, which is kind of crazy. So,
hey,
just have to say thank you, and to the YouTube folks and the Twitch folks watching. I think I'm gonna take us offline now, so it's time to say goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Yeah, we'll be releasing video games at some point. So that's cool.